So all these different kinds of poverty, which is not captured by income poverty, falls under multidimensional poverty. If you want to know more about multidimensional poverty, I would recommend you guys to read about it in the Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative. They even calculated a global multidimensional poverty index, and India was ranked 62nd among 107 countries. Next, what have been achieved so far when it comes to SDG 1? According to World Bank, extreme poverty has already fallen from 21.2% in 2011 to 13.4% in 2015. How much is that in terms of people? These are 271 million who have been lifted out of poverty. You must have heard about Manrega, and that has generated more than 2.7 billion person days of employment in 2018 to 2019. And the beneficiaries of Manrega have been mostly women belonging to ST and SC communities. Then there is the Swachh Bharat mission, which was launched in 2014, and it had a stellar record. It ended up building 39.5 million household toilets. Other areas have been financial inclusion. The Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, it opened up 377 million accounts, and the deposits that were made in those accounts were 1,079 billion Indian rupees. One of the advantages of financial inclusion was that it enabled direct transfer of benefits, so the middleman was excluded, and it helped in targeted treatment of poverty. Other areas have been inclusivity and equity of quality primary healthcare. The Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, launched in 2018, it has the aim of universalization of primary healthcare. And there is also a complement program under it, which is the Ayushman Bharat, providing health insurance coverage to about 500 million beneficiaries. This is their aim to be provided by 2022. Finally, the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana of 2016, it provided LPG access to poor families. So these are just few that I have covered here. Of course, there are many more, and you should definitely read up on that. Again, I'm not trying to present a rosy picture, so obviously there have been a lot of challenges with all these programs in act. For example, for Manrega, there was poor planning and lack of administrative capacity at the village level, deficiency of adequate administrative and technical manpower, and also discrimination, especially those belonging to lower caste. And there was also difficulty in funding. Next, for the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, despite having all these accounts opened under it, most of these bank accounts were inactive, and this Yojana did not serve the needs of the informal sector because they depend more on the cash-based economy. And for that reason, there has to be other financial services which cater to the informal sector. Finally, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, for that to be successful, there has to be wide reforms across public and private providers of healthcare. So this is just a map of India, which I picked up from Niti Aayog 2019 report, and it shows how different states of India has done so far when it comes to SDG 1. The red states, these are the aspirant states, and they have not been doing very well. They are Chhattisgarh, Karnataka, Assam, and few others. The performer states, they are doing better than the red ones. They are Kerala, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, and finally the green ones, the front runners. They have done the most when it comes to achieving SDG 1. These are Tamil Nadu, Tripura, Andhra Pradesh, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Sikkim. You can find this map and read up on it in the Niti Aayog report, which was published in 2019. So what we must achieve by 2030? First of all, eradication of extreme forms of poverty measured as living on less than $1.25 per day. Second, for men, women, and children at different ages, reduce poverty defined in all national dimensions by at least half. What do I mean by all national dimensions? Let me elaborate on that. It means that there has to be free, universal, common healthcare and education programs delivering same quality of service to everyone. This has to be a must by 2030, especially for the marginalized and vulnerable communities of India. Then there has to be nationwide implementation of social protection systems. Examples of these systems can be the pension scheme. Currently, the unorganized sector does not have any kind of pension or job guarantee. So these kind of protection systems need to be expanded to all the sectors of India. Also, something like food security. Not all rural schools in India have access to midday meal schemes. So by 2030, there has to be nationwide implementation of these kind of social protection schemes. Fourth, ensure equality of rights for economic resources, accessibility of basic services, control and ownership of land, property, inheritance of natural resources, new technology, and microfinance. Despite feminization of the agricultural labor force, women in India, they own very small percentage of land, and they also own a very small percentage of property. So by 2030, there has to be equality of rights. Finally, build the resilience of the poor and those in the vulnerable situations, reduce their exposure and vulnerability to climate-related extreme events, other economic, social, and environmental shocks and disasters. You might hear in the news very frequently that various states of India has been facing climate-related disasters such as flood or droughts. So in those cases, the poor who are mostly affected, they get displaced from their homes. So by 2030, there has to be some kind of disaster management system in place so that the poor are resilient to any climate-related changes. So now that we are in times of COVID, so how has COVID affected poverty? It has a high negative impact on poverty, and there is increased poverty due to job losses and economic lockdown. So it kind of feels like whatever has been achieved so far, we are not able to do any more, and we have pushed more and more people towards poverty because of COVID. Then there is also a disproportionate impact on vulnerable groups. I'm sure you must have read about the plight of migrant workers in India. So you as young leaders, what can you contribute? First, there has to be localization of SDGs. And how can that be achieved? By participation. And you guys have already achieved it by participating in this Young Leaders program. What do you do next? Raise awareness about the importance of SDGs and its relevance in your local communities. How do you raise awareness? I'm sure all of you have accounts in various social media platforms. So write about it, talk and discuss about it. Maybe start a blog, write an article. Also collaborate with local organizations and act as ambassadors. Remember that there has to be a gender perspective to these activities so that it is inclusive of women and girls. Finally, educate yourself further on SDGs. There are various websites, especially by UN and Niti Aayog. They have published various reports on SDGs. So read up and educate yourself. So I know that you will get a task in one of those weeks where you have to discuss or bring forth ideas as to what you can do in this current times. Here are a few things that I can give examples about what you can do in the current times. First, try to generate a discussion around poverty in your online classrooms. Donate clothes and food to the poor and vulnerable. Reach out to families, individuals, colleagues who are in the position to donate food, clothing, and other essential items. Buy from places that donate a portion of their revenue to helping the poor. So what more you can do? This is where you need your creative thinking and bring forth ideas about, in the current times, how you can help the poor and what else you can do. Bring ideas and discuss so that we can find new solutions to tackling poverty in times of COVID. So yeah, that was my presentation. Thank you.
Hi, Adreeta. You can take questions from Telegram group right now.
Oh, okay, sure.
मैंने आपको एडमिन बना दिया है, आप चेक कर सकते हैं. क्वेश्चंस यंग लीडर्स वहां पूछेंगे.
Okay. Yeah, so yes, today's session is the same as before. This was just a repeat session, as I had mentioned earlier. One of the questions was um, it was asked that several policies have been made by government, but are they really getting implemented at the ground level? If we focus mainly on implementation rather than introducing a new policy, it would be more fruitful to overcome rural poverty. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. There have been several policies in place, but there have been issues with implementation. And but at the same time, we should also understand that not all the policies currently there can help to solve each and every kind of poverty. As I mentioned that there are different kinds of poverty. There are food poor, there are health poor, there are living standard poor. So in those cases, new policies might be needed, and this might be specific to the region or that locality. So despite having all these policies in place, there might be new policies which still can do a lot more than the ones which are currently available. Um, there was also
अद्रिता,
Mhm.
आपका वीडियो ऑन कर लो आप.
Oh yeah. Okay. So there was another question: what is the possibility of completely privatizing the economy? Would it help removing the earlier biases? Uh, well, the thing with privatization is that their motives are completely different. They have a profit motive. So, there are various goods such as education, health. These might not be like, if it is provided by the private sector, only those who are rich can afford these services. So there has to be some kind of public option available so that those who cannot afford these services, but they should have the chance to avail this, for example, health or education. So I don't think privatization can completely solve the issue. Yeah, there was another question of, my point of view is providing stuff to the needy does not eradicate poverty. Rather, why not we help them to earn money to meet their need? Yeah, definitely. We should have proper systems in place which kind of encourage them and uplift their current position so that they're able to work and earn for themselves. But at the same time, we also need to realize that those who are ultra poor, they do not even have the basic skills to go and work somewhere. So initially, things such as food and clothing, they would need to have some sort of support, and only then they can go on to have, once they have the basic support, only then they can go on to build on skills like educate themselves, have better health, and then they can stand on their feet and start working. Am I visible?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, those were a few of the questions, and let me see if there are more questions. So somebody asked that there are various policies of government for betterment of poor persons, but poor persons are unable to get benefits due to lengthy process. Yes, I definitely agree with that. So there has to be some kind of scheme such as the Jandhan Yojana, where it enabled the direct transfer of benefits. So just so that these lengthy procedures can be shortened, there have to be various other schemes implemented so that the middleman is eliminated. Um, how can we know if the help is reaching the person who actually needs it and not a racket organizer? Well, it's kind of difficult to know, but would you rather have a situation where you are not providing for people who are actually poor just because you believe that they might be in a racket organization? Or would you rather have a situation where you're kind of providing to the poor who actually needs it? So I think it's better off to just assume that people are poor and provide the benefit, and only then, when there is more observation made, only then you can conclude that, oh, they belong to a racket organization and I should not be giving them these benefits. But initially, I don't think you should have that biased opinion, because it's going to do more harm than benefit. Another question, which was in similar topic, was, do beggar syndicates add to our economy, or they contribute to poverty because they are economically organized in themselves but unorganized sector for India? What do you think? Yes, so beggar syndicates, definitely they would fall under the unorganized sector, and like these are not, like, I would say these are some kind of failures of the economy where people are not being provided the essential goods that they need, so they decide to form these kind of syndicates and organize themselves. And there has to be proper investigation so that these kind of syndicates can be broken down, and also so that people who are really in need of those services are provided. Yes, I do feel that beggar syndicate, they kind of contribute and they encourage poverty in a way, because once they know that once they hack the system, they would keep on capitalizing on it and would not let that benefit trickle down to those poor who actually need it. Yeah, there was this another question. In India, getting jobs is kind of tough. And from now, when the economy has shrunk a lot, what are the best sectors that can help to eradicate poverty? I believe the best sectors would be primary sectors, and also maybe something in the construction, because you won't, the kind of skills that they would require, they can build that skills, and once they get trained in those and provide for these sectors, then these sectors can feed into providing more and more jobs. So infrastructure, construction, and also some basic low skill jobs. Yeah, there is this good question. What is the best way to work on the basic ground level as a student? So, as a student, I would say that obviously now the times are different, but given these times, you can still go and maintaining social distance. If you want to take the risk, go and talk to people and ask them what kind of problems are they facing now, because a lot of things books will not provide you. You need to be there on the ground and like going and talking to people, building connection, building a network, and asking them like what kind of poverty are they facing. Are they poor in terms of health, education, or is it income? So things like that. And so on the ground level, what I can suggest is going and talking to people, although I would not recommend it at current times. But if you take the proper precautions and maintain social distance, that's the best way. Like even when you do any kind of research in a PhD program, or even on when you're a master's student, you have to go there in the field, because a lot of these things are survey based, and they give you a better picture of the reality than what you get from maybe secondary data or like aggregated level data. So at the ground level, you have to just go and talk to people. That's what I can suggest. But current times, you have to be careful. Yeah, so somebody asked, can you please elucidate the role of social platforms for the awareness? So what I mean by this is social platforms such as maybe on Facebook or even on Instagram or Twitter, you can write about poverty or what you are doing currently and encourage people to come and join you, other youth who are not part of this program, but you can spread awareness of this and like write an article or like write a few lines, tell them that, oh, I'm interested in this, is anybody else interested, we have these ideas, what do you think, we can do this community based project and we can reach out to people, help the poor. So that is what I mean by using social media platforms. Social media platforms are basically to generate awareness and also help other people who have similar interest as you to reach out to you and maybe form a group or something and be ambassadors of it. So even you can start a blog or write an article and share it. So these kind of things can be useful to just spread awareness and bring people with similar ideas together. I think we're already out of time right now. I'm sorry I couldn't answer everybody's question, but as I mentioned, this was a repeat session, so I tried to bring in questions from the previous session and also tackle a few more that were asked. So I'll try to reply to these whenever I get time. Sorry that I'm not able to answer all these questions, but thank you once again for attending it. And I hope you read up more on SDG 1 and educate yourself. Bye-bye.